Describe in single words only the good things that come into your mind. About your mother?
My mother?
Yeah.
Let me tell you about my mother.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
Have you ever been in an institution? Cells.
Cells.
Do they keep you in a cell? Cells.
Cells.
When you're not performing your duties, do they keep you in a little box? Cells.
This causes it. This causes it. This causes it. Information overload. All the electronics around you poisoning the airwaves.
You are listening to the High Tech Low Life podcast, a cyberpunk media retrospective. High Tech Low Life contains language and themes not suitable for all audiences, as well as spoilers for the content being covered. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the High Tech Low Life podcast with your hosts Eric and Josh. I'm Eric.
And I am Josh.
That was my intro. It was bare bones and boring.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
I mean, you know, this episode is just going to pop. We've got tons of clips we pulled and lots of sound effects going on. It's going to be great.
A great guest.
Yeah.
He's going to be very quiet. Don't ask questions of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a low key episode for I mean, we'll get into it, but this book is not a happy book.
No, it's really not.
I know cyberpunk is not a happy genre, but there is some fun to be squeezed off around the edges, but not in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
No, not so much. And if you, the audience, might recall, that is the name of the novel that the film Bladerunner was based off of. So if you screwed up and actually accidentally got yourself a copy of the movie novelization of Blade Runner, which I have never read.
I may have, dude. I don't know. We'll see as we start talking about it.
Okay.
Because they called it Blade Runner based on the movie Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. But the cover, now granted, I'm not going to say where I picked up this audiobook, but the cover was clearly Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. I read this a long time ago, and I remember it being a lot more different from the movie than it was, but also my brain is bad. So
okay, well, I'm really curious how this shakes out then.
If so, this episode might go into the archives. We'll see what happens.
I honestly think that should not be the case. We should absolutely cover each of the books that we read.
All right, that's fine. Yeah, sure.
I mean, yeah.
We'll see. Before we dive into that, let's talk about some other things. We talk about dystopias around here because, you know, we're reading about them and watching movies about them. So let's talk about how our real life is becoming one.
Yeah, reading about them, watching them, talking about them, living
in them, participating, trying to survive. I was going to just skip this part because I have one of my recommendos ties very closely into it, but we did have a little taste of it ourselves here in the city we live in this week, and it feels like it's worth mentioning.
Yeah.
At the Super Bowl victory parade, there was a shooting, an altercation of some kind. I don't know. The motive hasn't been released. I've heard it was just like a personal beef.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too. I mean, whether or not, you know, and who knows what the actual story is at this point. 22 shot, I think, one dead, like 10 or 12 minors were shot.
Yeah.
It's a
lot of kids at that parade, as there should be.
Yeah. Led to a lot of real fun posts on the Kansas City subreddit.
Oh yeah. That was a great place. You know what bothers me most about it personally?
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, obviously what bothers me most is that people were hurt and killed. Yeah. But Like
Look, we've long moved past the point where we need to say that. Like, we on this podcast are anti people getting killed randomly.
Yeah, that's a good just over everything. Assume that.
Yeah.
But what bothered me most about it personally, it was how little I cared.
I mean, I was.
It's not that I didn't care; it just didn't move the needle for me anymore.
Yeah, we've reached a real fucking burnout point with it.
One of our mutual friends, like as it happened, texted me like, "Did you hear what would happen?" And I said, "Yeah, basically." And then he's like texting me updates as he's getting news.
Cool.
And I wasn't stopping him because obviously he was getting something out of it. But like, it didn't affect me any more than a shooting anywhere else, even though it was happening like a half mile away from my house.
Yeah, it's
that's kind of depressing.
Yeah, we've really reached a fucking huge saturation point with this. And there's absolutely nothing we can do to change that, or I don't know. Maybe other people have ideas on, like, because it's clearly fucking terrible, but at the same time, we clearly don't give a shit, like, institutionally. So, thoughts and prayers. I mean,
it's just like COVID. Like, I know I shouldn't be going to shit like concerts and conventions and stuff, but at the same time, man, there's not much joy to be wrung out of life these days, and we have to do the things that provide it, or we will wither away and die. So I guess it's just getting shot or getting, a terminal disease is something we have to risk to exist in a community of human beings now.
Yeah.
Because the people who have the power to change things refuse to.
Yeah. It's really fucking something. Yeah. I think it's in the 3 minutes since you said the thing that surprised you was that you didn't care. Yeah. I think what I've come up with in those 3 minutes is that, this really has become, we at some point, and I think for me it was somewhere around the Uvalde shooting. Was that 2 years ago? Where it's really just become kind of, and it sounds incredibly harsh to say it, it's just kind of background radiation in how we have to exist. Much like the ongoing ethnic cleansing in Palestine.
Yeah.
It's like, I think about it every day. I see stuff about it every day. I've signed petitions, I've been to rallies, but it's just a matter of...
you still just have to live.
Yeah, and I'm so fucking tired.
Yeah.
Which, I'm not trying to downplay anybody who is directly affected by any of this.
God, no.
But, there's simply, like, unless we actually reach a point where, like, radical actions need to occur or, like, start occurring. I've done literally everything in the book that I can do. I've written I've written emails, I've written letters, I've made phone calls. It's like, I've written fucking paper letters. I even hand wrote a letter.
Really? You can still do that? Yeah. I guess you've been in academia, so you have that skill.
Oh, it's very, it was like, it was a real fucking trial.
My wrist is cramping.
Yeah. Yeah. So handwriting a letter is tough, but I read a thing that said, okay, now it's really easy for people to download, and just print out form letters. So the thing to get your reps to actually pay attention and take note is a handwritten letter. And I was like, okay, look,
God, really?
We're literally sending bombs to a country that's doing ethnic cleansing actively and openly. So I will go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not going to change anything.
No. But yeah, it feels callous, like going back to the shooting, to say that we don't care. It's not that we don't care. Obviously we care. It's that, it's just a helpless feeling.
Yeah, we literally can do less than nothing about it.
That's the most dystopian part. And I mean, not intentionally tie it into the book, but I feel like
malaise.
Just watching the world happen is, man, it's a bummer.
It really is.
And the Palestine thing actually segues into my first recommendo.
Ooh.
Which is for it's for a podcast, kind of. So I was listening to the latest, as of this recording, episode of It Could Happen Here, which is a daily kind of podcast in the Robert Evans cinematic universe.
Not the cool Robert Evans cinematic universe.
No, not the actual Robert Evans cinematic universe.
And was I that dictator? You bet I was.
But they had a guest presenter. He's a comedian named Matt Lieb, talking about Hasbara, which is not how it's pronounced in Yiddish, but how it's spelled. Hasbara, which is like Israel's propaganda department, for those unfamiliar. It's a 2-part episode, and it did a very good job of explaining to people, like, especially when this shit first started, it's hard to say anything public as like a non-Jew, non-Muslim, white person. You don't want to be anti-Semitic, and you don't want to be, Islamophobic. And obviously you want to help these people. But he was explaining how Hasbara has done such a good job of equating anti-Zionism to anti-Semitism, and how Zionism actually in itself is deeply anti-Semitic. And it really helped me, as a non-Jew, non-anything, wrap my brain around that. And I think if anybody else is feeling that way, like, how do I properly, speak out against the atrocities being committed by Israel without appearing anti-Semitic, it would be a good thing to listen to. He was doing it to promote his own podcast, which is called Bad Hasbara. And I'm going to listen to that. It's only been going for a short time, so there's not a ton of episodes. And he's funny. He's a comedian. He doesn't just drop facts on you. He's a funny guy.
Okay. That sounds interesting. And yeah, that's a real problem.
Yeah, it is a real problem. And it helped me so much listening to it to understand, like, what our, I guess duty is the word that's coming to mind, but responsibility to help the Palestinian people is, without, harming, Jewish people as a whole. It's an interesting balance beam to walk.
Yeah. That sounds very interesting. I'm not a huge fan of the Robert Evans cinematic universe, except for, the real Robert Evans. And related to that, I recommend the mediocre Paramount Plus series or maybe it was Peacock, I don't know, from last year, called The Offer, about the making of The Godfather.
Okay.
Because it has a very good portrayal of Robert Evans, doing coke, screwing Ally McGraw.
Yeah.
But I will give that a shot.
Yeah, well, that podcast, like It Could Happen Here, is very hit and miss for me. I don't listen to all of them. I mean, it's a daily show. Yeah. It's hard to listen to all of them.
Yeah.
But I check it every day and see if there's something that interested me. And I've heard Matt Lieb on other shows, and so I figured I'd check it out. And
that name rings a bell. I assume I've heard him on another podcast, because that's the only place I know comedians from.
He explained, like, the first episode is him explaining, like, he did the trip to Israel as a kid, and everything they were telling him, and he got to watch Netanyahu give a speech.
Ooh.
And yeah, it's fascinating. Propaganda is dangerous.
It really is.
It turns good, well-meaning people into bad people without them even knowing it's happening.
Yeah. It's propaganda is and I mean this in the most value-neutral sense possible, pretty cool in terms of being, and my version of pretty cool is interesting.
Also, great Sepultura song.
Yes.
Do you have any recommendations? I've got 2 more, actually, and I'm trying not to burn up all this time because we're doing a book out.
I do. Okay. I watched, and these are totally unrelated to the current situation.
Okay. We are transitioning out of dystopia world.
Yes. I watched on Apple TV right now. There is a show called Criminal Record. It's an Apple TV / maybe BBC. I don't know. It's a English co-pro.
Okay.
Starring Cush Jumbo, who she is.
Cush Jumbo.
Yeah, she's an actress. She was in The Good Fight or The Good Wife. She's been in a ton of shit. You've absolutely seen her in stuff.
Okay.
And Peter Capaldi.
Definitely know him.
Yeah, it's called Criminal Record, and it is about a guy in England who got sent to prison for the murder of his girlfriend. He maybe or maybe not did it, and like 15 years after the fact, something pops up that suggests he didn't, so there's sort of a reinvestigation into the case, and I expected it would just be like, oh, this is fine, because for some reason I can watch British police procedurals more than I can American ones.
Interesting.
Probably because of the less guns. And I mean, obviously police are fucking bad. We've watched Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
But so I just kind of figured, oh, okay, I like both of these actors. But it is a really fucking good show.
What's it called again?
Criminal Records.
All I can remember is Cush Jumbo.
Yeah.
I just Googled and do recognize her.
Yeah, she has an awesome name, and she's a really good actress. And Peter Capaldi is always great, even if he's not Malcolm Tucker.
Definitely. All right, you're bringing the British recommendos the last couple of weeks, I've noticed.
Ooh, let's see. Do I have more? I mean, sort of. Go ahead with your next.
My next one is a movie called Out of Darkness. I saw it in the theater.
Oh, I saw you post about this and was very curious.
It's, how do you describe it? It takes place 45,000 years ago. So like primitive man. And, well, by our standards. And they are just, it's this group of people that are just trying to survive in this new place they've come to, and they are being hunted by monsters. That's a very broad overview. Mm-hmm. And they speak
or Paleolithic.
Okay. They speak in a made up language that, the filmmaker was obviously just guessing at a type of language they would speak. So the whole thing is subtitled. They don't speak a lot. Most of it takes place by like firelight. And when it is daytime, it's very dark and bleak, but it was very good. I don't know how to explain it without giving it away. There are some scary parts. It is technically a horror / thriller, but there's also some pretty gory parts too, but it seemed, we only went because we had a buddy visiting from out of state, and we had to kill some time in the afternoon. So me and him and my wife just went to a movie and ended up loving it. So
I have some speculation on it based on what very little you've said here. I'm not going to say it because it might because I tend to be good at speculation.
Yeah, you probably could guess it.
I bet I can spoil it for people, but I won't.
Do it afterwards if you'd like.
Yeah, it sounded really interesting based on what you posted and what you just said, and I was utterly shocked that I had not heard word one of this movie prior to you posting about it on Wednesday or whenever.
Me too, and it's got 80% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, based on what you have said, this should be popping up on half the fucking subreddits I'm on.
it's like I don't want to get off on a rant, but it's a very unique, creative movie idea. And of course, we never fucking hear about it. It's just a sign of the bleakness of the film industry, because shit like this is what we want, but nobody ever hears about it. So it's sad, but it is fantastic, and I would recommend it in the theater.
Reading.
Yeah, I know, a lot of reading, and it's so dark all the time, and nobody's pretty because they're all fucking covered in mud and filth. And
what was it at? This is a weird question. Was it a normal theater, or okay,
it was just a standard. It was actually pretty small.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was at whatever the hell replaced the Alamo, or like one of the more art theaters around.
No, it was just at Cinemark.
Okay, cool. Well, maybe I'll check that out this week.
Yeah, I hope it's still there. I got one more, but if you have one, let's knock it.
Okay, I am going to hit it. Okay, actually, I have two more, so I'll knock out one pretty quick. I watched American Fiction.
Okay.
It's one of the Best Picture nominees this year. Stars Jeffrey Wright as a black writer who is not getting a lot of recognition for his work, and sees that other black writers are getting a lot of recognition for what he considers lowest common denominator, like written in slang, we need the experience of the ghetto type works. And he writes a book like that using a pseudonym and gets very successful at it.
Oh, I think I saw trailers for this, actually.
Yeah, you probably did. It's a really good film. Jeffrey Wright's performance is fucking incredible. It has Sterling K. Brown as his...
friend of the show.
Yes, friend of the show, Sterling K. Brown, as his gay brother. And that's a major point. The character has very recently come out as gay, so that pops up a lot. Also has Issa Rae in it. Anyway, very good movie. Like 4 out of 5 stars.
Oh, okay. That I'm sure I will watch at some point soon. That sounds like something we would enjoy.
Yeah, it was it doesn't, I wish it was a hair better, and I don't know what could make it better, but it was very, very fucking good. And hey, that was a great way to spend Friday night or whatever.
Okay. My final recommendo is on... It comes with a big old asterisk caveat, but it is on
The Protocols of the Elders of Zion.
Nope, not that one. Not a fan of that piece of work. No, it's on Peacock, which I do believe Protocols of the Elders of Zion are on Peacock if you look hard enough.
I know it's on Amazon Prime. They will take literally anything.
They'll publish anything too.
Yeah.
It is called Killing It with Craig Robinson and Claudia O'Doherty.
Yeah, I have seen commercials for that, and I've heard people say that it's better than it looks.
It is it's up there for shows I've watched in the last couple of years. Like I really like it. It's a very it's a satirizing hustle culture, basically. Mm-hmm. That's what it starts off with. It gets a little more into just kind of capitalism in general and particularly influencer culture and stuff, but it starts, the gist is hustle culture, and it does such a good job of taking it down. And Craig Robinson is fantastic. Claudia O'Doherty is hilarious and adorable.
It's, as far as I've seen, it is impossible to make her not that.
Yeah, true. I can't remember the name of the actor who plays Craig Robinson's brother in it, but he plays such a wonderful scumbag. I love him so much.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot. What's the dude's name from Tim and Eric? Tim Heidecker. He's such a piece of shit in the show.
He is pretty much always a piece of shit in every show.
Yeah, he is. And he's so good at it.
Yeah, he's honestly very, very impressive.
But here's the big asterisk.
Okay.
there is a lot of animal death in it, like more than you would think.
Yeah.
It's mainly limited to lizards.
Editor's note, I meant reptiles. I know snakes aren't lizards. I had lizard on the brain. Sorry.
Okay.
Snakes in particular. But like kind of the whole plot of the first season is Craig Robinson and Claudio Doherty like need money, so they enter this boa constrictor hunting contest in Florida.
Okay.
And there's a lot of dead snakes and eventually other lizards and stuff. So if you're not into that, keep that in mind. It's
honestly, I have no idea if I would be okay with that. Like, it seems like it would be more acceptable than
mammals.
Yeah. Like, it seems that I wouldn't feel as bad, but God knows at this point. I've become so much more sensitive over the past.
Right.
Who can say?
I just want to put it out there because I don't want to recommend something and people get into that and it like turns their stomach. It doesn't bother me. I don't know. Reptiles don't bother me as much, I guess. And this is, most of them are killed in a way like it's true that they are an invasive species and due to, pet shops burning down and stuff. Like there is a problem with boa constrictors and they have to be killed cold to keep it under control. So I don't know. They're just, they don't hesitate. And I'm sure no actual animals are harmed, but they will kill a snake for a laugh. No problem.
That would be a wild ass TV show. There is no ASPCA informer on the set. We just killing snakes all the time.
But man, it's other than that, I enjoy it so much. It's such a good, as a entrepreneur business owner, it really hits home in a lot of ways. I will give it a shot. I have considered that show before, if only because like I've really enjoyed Craig Robinson on a lot of stuff, and Claudia Doherty is just a fucking joy every time I've ever seen her. So she is in it. Like every line she speaks gets a laugh. It's like almost 100% hit rate with her jokes. It's crazy.
All right. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I will give that a shot.
Okay. That's it.
Okay, my final recommendo, and vaguely related on the subject of animal death.
Great.
I watched
Which
Napoleon.
we do not recommend for the record.
We do not recommend.
Napoleon, okay.
Yes, I watched
Horses,
Napoleon.
I'm guessing.
Yes. This one, like 10 minutes into the movie, a horse gets cored like an apple by a cannonball.
Wow.
I mean, it's all clearly CG. But
Yeah. No, I don't think many people are killing animals on sets these days, thankfully.
They don't really allow that much anymore.
Yeah, good. It's a good improvement.
Yeah, I agree.
Regulation. It's a good thing.
Yeah. But in that scene, I was like, wow, I had always kind of wondered, horses just had wildly rough lives in the military prior to, 1950, basically. What would a horse look like if it was hit by a cannonball? Probably about that.
Well, now you know.
Yeah.
Is the movie good overall, though?
I think it is good.
Because I want to see it, but...
I think it's like, okay, I really liked, and this was my major stumbling block with it, I really liked Joaquin's performance.
Oh, right. It's well established you're not a big Joaquin fan.
Yeah, not a big Joaquin fan, but I really liked his performance. And I think that was largely helped by the writing, because Napoleon is written, and Joaquin plays him very well as just kind of a fucking little prick cunt.
Yeah.
Just an insecure dick who's getting cucked. Like, one of the biggest laugh lines that I've seen in, I don't know, years, him yelling at a British ambassador, "You think you're so great just because you have boats."
That, from what I've heard about like European history in that era, like that's a common thought, I think.
Yeah, it was. I liked the movie. I think it didn't hang together as well as maybe it could have. It seemed a little disconnected. Like it was structured. It's structured largely around his marriage to and romance with Josephine, but there's so much outside of that in his life that it's kind of, it loses some. It has to go past that, and it has to start before that to make it make any sense, and it just feels kind of minimized. I'm very curious. Apparently, there's going to be, I think maybe in a couple of months, Apple is going to put out a director's cut on streaming, which is going to be like another fucking hour long.
Hey, who directed Napoleon?
Ridley Scott.
That makes sense familiar.
That ties into what we're going to talk about today. Guy not known for doing director's cuts at all. So I'm curious. I'll be curious to see that version of it and see if it hangs together a little bit more. Although, I don't know, it's already long as hell.
Right.
I mean, it might be one of those things where, yeah, I'll watch the director's cut spread over 3 nights.
Yeah. That's how I'd have to do it, I think.
Yeah. But, it's a pretty good movie. I would say a reasonably firm recommendo. Not a, you gotta watch this, but...
reasonably firm.
Yes.
Good enough to get the job done.
Yeah, a reasonably firm recommendo. Like, I liked it pretty well.
All right. I was just thinking of a movie scale with penises from limp to turgid.
Yeah.
reasonably firm is,
and of course the highest rating is boing.
Yeah. I'll watch it eventually because I like the history of Napoleon and I like Ridley Scott.
All I could think about for a good portion of the movie was I kept thinking about the opening narration / text in Master and Commander, April 1805. Napoleon is the master of Europe. The oceans are now battlefields.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
That movie is so great, dude.
I have not actually seen that movie.
Oh, dude, it's like, I do not know how that movie is as good as it is, but shit, it's a solid goddamn bit of business.
Well,
oceans are now battlefields. You think you're so great just because you have boats.
It's true. I should watch it. I don't know. Boat movies. I don't like boats in movies. I don't like boats in real life. I could do without boats.
Okay. Huh. Didn't know that about you.
I mean, it's more of a ships thing. I'm okay like on a lake, but on an ocean, I don't want nothing to fucking do with it.
Huh. Okay. I was going to say, do I need to cancel the high-tech low-life kayaking trip I had scheduled?
Kayaks are fine. I'm down. Okay. I'm down to do that. It's going to be a weird recording session, but we'll figure it out.
Really weird to have to keep it in a Ziploc. I don't know.
It's specifically ships, and I realized it when I did my big trip to Malaysia, and we ferried. To Tioman Island. It's like a 2-hour ferry, just cram-packed full of people, and I'm like, man, I would rather go down in a plane crash than have this boat sink right now. Mm-hmm. Like 100%. Sure, there's a chance of floating there and getting rescued, but I'd rather just take the instant.
Yeah. Having all the synthetic fibers on your person melt to your skin.
Yes, but instantly.
Yeah.
Sounds preferable than slowly dying of exposure floating in the sea or getting sucked into a watery grave. Okay, this is getting dark.
Getting sucked?
Getting sucked. Some boats, I'm sure that happens.
This turned a lot more interesting.
Into a watery grave is what I said.
The old Titanic problem.
Yeah, the old Titanic. All right, we have burned over 1/3 of our Tight 90.
Oh shit. Okay.
So it's time to talk about Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
1968. This was first published.
10 years before I was first published.
Wait, I didn't know you were published.
I was. Random House.
Took me another 30 years beyond that.
Yeah,
35. Anywho, so this is the book that the movie Blade Runner is, quote, based on?
Yes.
It has some similarities to the movie Blade Runner. Overall, what were your feelings about this book? And also, if you want to give your feelings about the movie, because I think that's going to be an important point.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. We should probably try to resist comparing it to the movie as much as possible, because we could spend a lot of time doing that, and we have to have a whole episode for the movie.
Yeah.
What was the question? Sorry.
How'd you like it?
Oh, how'd I like it? Well, assuming I read the right book,
I'm very curious how this is going to go.
I liked it. It was a bummer, and what I read, I don't know, it connected with me quite well, not necessarily in a way that makes me feel happy.
Okay. Yeah.
But I do kind of think that the dystopia in this book is maybe not in the ways it manifests in the book, but I don't know.
Malaise.
The malaise, yeah, the malaise, the loneliness, the just the world that's being built feels possible and like a direction we're kind of heading.
Yeah.
Not to mention the wars and the dust.
Cod pieces.
The cod pieces. Okay, there was cod pieces. So maybe I read the right book.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah. So it was kind of a emotional experience getting through it.
Okay, that's good. I liked this book more than I had expected I would.
Yeah.
Because it's been north of 20 years since I read it. I never tremendously liked it.
Same.
Previously. I don't know that I would say I tremendously like it now, but I liked it more than I figured I would. It helped that it was short.
Yeah.
I think it's like 212 pages in paperback, something like that.
Yeah, just under 9 hours in audio. Well, actually, I listened to it at 1.5 speed, so it was like 6 hours.
Oh, nice. I think I overall liked it. I had forgotten a ton about it. I think, and I'm going to have to go into the movie now, I think I like the movie more. If nothing else, in terms of me feeling entertained.
For pure entertainment factor, I'd agree. I don't know if I'd agree that I like the movie. I mean, obviously I love the movie.
Different.
The movie's iconic and legendary. It's hard to like compare the two. It's like, because I've read the book twice, I've seen the movie a billion times, so it's hard to say that. But I like what the original was trying to do, and the movie definitely went kind of a different direction.
Oh yeah.
Which I think is smart for a movie.
Yeah, I think this as a movie would suck shit.
Yeah.
Right. It would eat farts. So,
because real quick, and I don't want to spend the whole goddamn time talking about the movie because we have to have a whole episode for that.
Yeah.
But the book is leaning more towards like empathy is like the main thing it's focused on, right?
Yes.
It's human beings' empathy towards each other, androids' lack of empathy, et cetera, et cetera. And that's not really, other than the Voight-Kampff test in the movie, it's more like what it is to be human and, you know, just humanity in general.
Yeah.
And can androids have it? Because in the book, there's really no question. These androids don't fucking have empathy.
Yeah, they absolutely do not. And they need to be killed because of that.
Yeah, and they're just the bad guys, and I'm sorry. And in the movie's much definitely like not like that at all. So
no, it has hugely different concerns than the book.
Which is kind of confusing when you're reading the book, because you're like, your brain's like, well, we should have sympathy for these androids, but at the same time, they're pretty horrific.
Yeah, I think, and that was probably one of the things that made me like this book less, 20 some odd years ago when I first read it as a teen or preteen. I mean, because I had obviously seen the movie, at least several times before I read the book. And I think there's maybe something lost in translation when you're doing the transition from the movie to the book, because the movie is a very bad adaptation of the book.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I don't say bad. It's just a
No, it's a terrible adaptation of the book.
okay. As an
Yeah.
as bad modifies the word adaptation.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is a great fucking movie. I mean, it's
Right.
I know Sean would argue with that. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Right. Why are we here? Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably, I mean, maybe not. You probably don't do a cyberpunk podcast if you don't like Blade Runner, but there are people on the fucking r/cyberpunk. Never mind. We don't need to get into it.
Oh God, you should. The post I saw last night. Oh, fucking hell.
Which one was that? I'm curious.
Oh, let's see. Which one was it? It might have been the. Can cyberpunk be anti-socialism?
Oh God, damn.
Yeah, it was. Boy, it was a swamp I stumbled into, and just fuck.
The one I saw was is Blade Runner 2049 actually a good movie? Question mark. I haven't seen it yet. And there's like a lot of people saying no. And I get why some people don't like Cyberpunk 2049. I really do. I don't get why anybody who likes Cyberpunk wouldn't like Cyberpunk 2049.
Yeah. I saw one a while back, which I'm not going to. I cannot get derailed into this, but there's so much fucking gatekeeping on there.
Yeah.
I believe the title was Blade Runner is not cyberpunk.
Oh, yeah, I think I saw that.
And they laid out the case for why Blade Runner does not fit their definition of cyberpunk. And like my skin burned off my skull.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, that. Like,
the gatekeeping. Okay, we don't need to talk.
It's not just the gatekeeping. It's also the opposite of gatekeeping. Like, is something cool? Then it must be cyberpunk. Like, there's both sides of the argument. Like, no, we definitely need gatekeeping, and no, this gatekeeping is insane and stupid. I really want to kill myself when I'm.
We have a very love-hate relationship with the cyberpunk subreddit, as they do with us from the one post we got mentioned on it.
I keep thinking maybe we'll get another. Oh well,
maybe someday. Anyway, also wanted to point out that Rick Deckard, not a lovable protagonist.
Yeah, very different between
Definitely
this and the
not
movie.
The handsome Harrison Ford. When I was reading this book, I was mostly picturing the characters as their movie counterparts.
Obviously,
I could not do that for Rick Deckard. He would not coalesce into Harrison Ford with the words that were being
the
written.
Only time that Harrison Ford plays this character is the scene in which he is interviewing Pris, and he's not Pris, the opera singer one.
Yeah,
and he puts the glasses on and is like, ma'am, he's doing these things with snakes. It could be obscene.
I forgot he does like a little nerd impersonation there. Yeah,
it takes 30 seconds if that. And that is very much the Rick Deckard in the book.
Maybe that was intentional. Yeah,
I assume so. The Rick Deckard in the book is kind of a boring
fucking loser.
Yeah, he sucks.
But I think that's more of a manifestation of the world he lives in. Like, everybody's a fucking loser that stayed on Earth.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it doesn't sound like those who left Earth did much better.
No.
Humanity's fucked in this book.
Yeah, it's no good. It's no good at all. Okay, so in the book, one of the things that they cut out of the movie, but is a central point of the book, is that pretty much everybody on Earth, at least that we're aware of, follows a religion called Mercerism. Mercerism is based around the concept of empathy. And you do this thing where you kind of jack in whatever, and you experience this Sisyphean eternal suffering of this character, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, of Wilbur Mercer. And therefore you connect with the rest of humanity through doing this. Also, here comes the title of the book. You are morally obligated to take care of animals because a huge nuclear war, World War Terminus, has wiped out most of life on Earth, it seems.
Yeah.
So everybody basically has a pet of some sort. And the people who can't afford real pets get simulacra electric pets.
Which is a mark of shame.
The electric sheep of the title. Yeah. Yeah, it means you either can't afford or couldn't take care of a real animal.
Which we find out Rick could not take care of a real animal.
Yes, apparently it got tetanus. He had a sheep, it died. He also cannot take care of his wife.
No.
He has a very unhappy marriage. I had completely forgotten how much of this book rotated around how unhappy his marriage was and the focus on the Penfield mood organ, which seems like a very cool, like the Penfield mood organ comes up over and over again. You can basically it's never explained how or why it works. But you can dial yourself a mood. For example, the mood to watch TV, no matter whatever's on.
Yeah, or the mood to, I feel like using the Penfield mood organ.
Yeah, or a sense of quiet satisfaction.
or as Deckard's wife discovers after some fiddling, you can program despair.
Yeah. So the world sucks. Like I said, there's a big world war. It's set in San Francisco. There's radioactive dust everywhere, which, even though it doesn't actively kill people, I believe the line was it now only deranges minds and genetics.
Yeah.
And everybody on Earth is worried about exposure to the dust, because if they get exposed to too much of the dust, then their 6-monthly or something scan will pick it up, and it will be determined that they are a special who is now unable to breed or leave the planet.
Correct.
So,
and leaving the planet is the goal for most people on Earth.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, because in part, when you leave the planet, and this is made explicit in, I don't know, I want to say it's like chapter 4 or 5 or something like that. It's just like the antebellum South. You get your own personal fucking slave.
Yeah, there's like a Total Recall style "Come to Mars" advertisement. Yeah, and you get your own android slave.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And sometimes these androids want to come back to Earth. Why? God knows.
Yeah.
Seems
they just want to get away from Mars, it sounds like.
Yeah. Mars or wherever else they are, because at one point, let's see. I'm not going to make it through all my notes to find it. At one point, it mentions that there are 3 colonized planets.
Okay.
And only Mars and Earth are mentioned by name. So I was very curious and keeping my eye out for what the fuck is the other.
I was a little confused because it starts off and it did make it sound like there were multiple colonies out off world, and then once Mars the androids, they're mainly talking about Mars. Yeah, so I didn't know if I'd misheard or what, but what we hear about Mars is that it's not great.
It's not awesome, but it's quote better than Earth. Anyway, Rick Deckard is a bounty hunter. He's a city employee, and he needs to get lucky by having a bunch of androids arrive so he can kill a bunch of them or retire a bunch of them and then buy a large animal because he feels very inferior.
He feels so much of this book is Rick Deckard's inner monologue about how pathetic he feels about not having a cool animal.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I get it. That's a critique on modern society. Absolutely.
I don't get it. My animal is very cool.
Yeah.
Her head is a really dumb shape.
It's true. And my animal is also cool. But as far as seeing people with things you would like to have, and being like, I work hard. Why can't I have those things too?
Yeah.
It's a real feeling that we all struggle with.
Yeah. So you know who does work hard? A character named John Isidore.
John Isidore does work hard. He works for an electric animal repair shop.
Yeah. It's a fake vet. They just repair animals that, like, because if a fake pet starts malfunctioning, they go into like sickness loops so they can be serviced and your neighbors won't know that.
They just think your animal's sick.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. He is what's called a chicken head.
Yeah.
Which does not mean that he gives fellatio in a car for crack.
No.
He is just disabled by the radioactive dust mentally.
Yeah. So now I got the indication that he had like special powers for a second or something. Did you?
Yes,
Okay.
that does occur.
They mentioned that he has like the power to bring stuff back to life from the dead, and then that power was taken away from him, or it was gone, and then he was turned into a chicken head or something like that. It was a weird thing to mention and not have ever come up again.
I think you're slightly misreading some stuff, but we can get to that more in that section.
Okay.
Yeah, he also has the power to move you.
Oh yeah.
So
he
lives
is
in
like the only good person in the book, kind of.
Yeah, he really is. And he lives in a more blasted and fucked up part of the city than Rick Deckard. He's like the only person in his building.
Yeah, he lives in the suburbs, which are just apparently massive blocks of apartments that are completely empty.
Yeah. But once we've gotten acquainted with him and kind of the structures of mercerism, and there in the second chapter, there's a really good section in the book about the creeping silence when he turns off his television.
Yeah.
It's probably the best writing in the book, which is not saying a ton because this book is not what I would call terribly well written. Why
do you say that out of curiosity?
Okay.
I don't feel that I have the knowledge to say what's good and bad writing.
Yeah.
It didn't seem particularly bad to me, but
it wasn't. I mean, okay. This is one of my big thoughts and why I'm not a huge fan of this book. A lot of the Golden and Silver Age sci-fi stuff is, and by that I mean up through the mid to late 70s. A lot of the stuff, like from the 20s to the 70s, is not well written in terms of just language and how you convey thoughts, I guess. And this is better than a lot of those. I think kind of like, and it's part of why I'm not a huge fan of, even though I've read a bunch of it, the old classic sci-fi, sort of the Asimov era. Because you could really get away with a lot in terms of, hey, I've got a vaguely cool idea. I don't have to put any thought into how I'm conveying this in words on a page. I just like, hey, what if I have 3 laws that govern all robots?
Okay.
And that can be like, so long as those are good enough when you're establishing sort of the rules of the genre and like how a genre works, you can kind of get away with that shit.
Is it because of how stories were published? Like
that too. Because Philip K. Dick and plenty of people before him were paid by the word,
right,
and not very well paid by the word. I mean, you'd get $20 for a story published in like, Amazing Tales or something like that. So you need to pump out a lot of fucking stories.
Right.
There's not time for polish.
Should we have done like a quick background to Philip K. Dick? Is it worth the effort?
I think we probably have to some extent.
I haven't read about it.
Yeah. I know a tiny bit. I don't think it's hugely I don't think it's hugely important. His most famous work, other than Blade Runner, is Man in the High Castle, which is an alternate history, and was turned into an Amazon series a couple of years ago that was pretty good. Starred Rufus Sewell. He was
and friend of the show. What's his name? Japanese man.
Yes. Shit. It's gone now. It's gone now. That was only weeks ago,
I know.
but it is totally gone. He started publishing in the 50s. Then that lasted through the end of his life, which was 88. I want to say. I think he died.
80,
Is that something like that?
82.
82. Okay.
53. Not very old.
Yeah, he was not very old. He was one of the figures that kind of led into the new wave of science fiction, not Nawabim, the
Not
new
new
wave
wave
of British
British heavy metal. Okay.
Yeah. Which is, of course, Iron Maiden, Def Leppard.
Yeah. Philip K. Dick had
Judas Priest.
nothing to do with that, but we are going to explain it anyway.
Actually, I bet if I took a moment, I could tie an Iron Maiden song into Philip K. Dick's writing.
Probably.
Anywho, he is one of the transitional figures between the Heinlein, Asimov, kind of the pre-war World War II, and then immediate post-war period into the deeper, I guess you'd say, science fiction that we got into in the 70s, 80s, and so on and so forth. He is also a serious fucking drug casualty. He did way too many drugs and also probably had some underlying mental health issues in the late 60s, mid to late 60s, and kind of burned himself out pretty bad.
Yeah.
And like, while he still had some really good and interesting thoughts, also sort of burned it out, you know. It's one of those things where it's kind of the classic pulp writer thing of, well, look, to make a living with these paychecks, I need to, I need to publish I need to get 5 stories accepted this week. Therefore, I got to do a shitload of speed.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I can just keep typing. And he had, a couple of documented instances of what you might call a psychotic break, where he, both the fun paranoid kind, people are watching him, the government's keeping track of him, and also the paranoid kind where, there's this vast universal intelligence that is directing all life on Earth and through the universe, and I am acting as an extension of this, and so on and so forth. And this is like, I think anybody who's a big fan of Philip K. Dick could absolutely take exception to any of the shit I've just said. I am not meaning it harshly. I just mean that's the reality of the times.
Yeah.
And he is not my favorite author. If anybody's a huge Dick defender out there, please come on our show.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we'll have more to, we'll have more to talk about.
We'll have more
remember
Dick
it for you wholesale.
Yeah, I'd love to have some Dick defenders.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess the jury's out on how I feel about him, because I liked this book.
Yeah, and the thing is, he is a very good transitional point. Like, he is a much better, and I hate this terminology and this concept, a much more literary writer than the earlier science fiction classics. But it's not to my preference. Like,
okay.
I think he's nowhere near as good with, and this is a dumb thing to say, he's nowhere near as good as with metaphor as, say, somebody who was 12 years behind this book, William Gibson, when he was publishing most of the stories in Burning Chrome.
Right.
Like, but I don't know. It's I feel like an ass talking like this because
it's a little
not
subjective too. Like,
it's not my area of authority, and I am perfectly willing to have other people correct me or argue with me about this. But
that's why I wish we could have the book episodes. I wish every one of them could have a guest. But also, asking somebody to read a whole fucking book and then come talk about it for 3 hours is a big ask. So
yeah, I feel like I barely want to make somebody watch a fucking hour and 30-minute movie.
I know, but people love talking about their favorite books too. So
yeah,
I
that's
guess
true.
Well,
hey, let us know if you let us know. Do you want to talk about Bladerunner? We'll talk about it some more.
Yeah. I wanted to have Sean on just to torture him and make him watch Blade Runner, but he's definitely going to be here for 2049. So maybe we should get somebody else for the first Blade Runner.
And hell, if you have thoughts, complaints, whatever about this episode, let us know. We might do another episode with responses. I mean, if you feel like it.
If somebody like next week or some weeks down the line when you hear this, you want to just come on here and talk about Do Androids Dream of Electric Sleep? We will talk about it with you.
Yeah. Feel free. How wrong am I? Perfectly happy with being wrong about this.
Not only can you come on our show and tell us if you disagree with us, but you can also email us at hightechlowlifepodcast@gmail.com or hit us up on socials, leave a comment on one of these on YouTube. We'll find it and we'll read it here, and Josh can feel chastised or validated. One of the two.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, interaction with people is wonderful.
Well, it's one of the overarching themes of this book.
Yeah, I'm so alone.
So alone.
So alone. Fiend. Oh, Prometheus. No.
Oh. The critics. Now that is it's a good stuff.
Yeah.
It's a good stuff.
It is a good stuff.
Oh, did I slam a bunch of vodka over the break? Nope. I just lost my ability to speak and think.
Chad will now be called Dr. Death. Okay. Take that, Guernica. Okay. So I am not going to go through the rest of this book chapter by chapter. We can cover it much faster and easier. So the main plot of this book is Rick Deckard needs some money to buy a fancy animal. And by that, I mean a live animal. Mm-hmm. To do this, because he's a bounty hunter, he needs some androids to make it to Earth. Conveniently, 6 androids make it to Earth. And the main bounty hunter... Yes, the main bounty hunter, Dave Holden, gets shot and
who you might
killed
recognize from the intro clip of this podcast. That's Dave Holden's Blade Runner character, right?
Yeah.
Administering the test.
Yeah. And so he gets taken out of commission, so now it is down to Rick Deckard to take out these 6 Andes. I found, I really had a lot of trouble with the fact that they kept being called Andes, in part because literally a week ago, completely randomly, I ran across the on YouTube Key and Peele sketch where it's Key and Peele and another guy on an airplane, and Key and Peele are talking about how they're going to take care of these Terrys.
I love that sketch.
These Terrys do nothing. And I kept, anytime the word Andes popped up in the book, it appeared in my mind as Terrys.
I get it.
Yeah, it was.
I don't like Andes as an abbreviation either, especially when droids is right there. But
yeah, it was discomforting. How about that? Just Key and Peele out there hunting Andes.
what a bounty hunting team they'd be.
Yeah, and that goes back to the Gremlins 2 mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago.
Every week we'll mention a Key and Peele sketch.
Yeah, that shouldn't be hard, honestly.
No, there's one for everything.
There really is. It's kind of like The Simpsons. Like Simpsons predicted it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he needs to hunt down these Andes. These Andes are the exciting new model Nexus 6. And that means they're the most advanced androids ever made. And Deckard and Holden's boss, Captain Bryant, wants him to go and test out and make sure that the Voight-Kampff test, which he is both movie and book, which they use to determine if someone is an android or not, works on these Nexus 6 models.
Yeah, it's very important also that they don't accidentally get a human.
Yes.
The police have an unnatural place an unnatural importance on human life as opposed to the real police.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So this is a horrible dystopia, but in that regard, that's kind of nice.
Yeah. I assume that's because there are less people around.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, there seems to be very few people, and it's important to not accidentally retire a human.
Yeah. And there are some worries that certain types and varieties of schizophrenics might register as non-empathic on this scale and therefore be determined as androids and executed.
Yeah.
Because these bounty hunters do have, kind of the judge, jury, executioner law.
Yeah. They am the law.
Yeah. Just like the Anthrax song.
I will say the Voight-Kampff test in the movie is much cooler and more mysterious. It seems like they're just asking random questions. I don't feel like they really explain. I mean, they do, but vaguely in the movie.
Yeah.
In the book, when they actually lay it out, that they're actually trying to get empathic responses over basically the situations that are harmful to animals usually, or
people.
Not as cool and mysterious as it is in the movie.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like a high-tech lie detector. Basically, Deckard asks fun questions like, what if somebody gave you a wallet made of baby skin?
Yeah.
And androids, since they don't feel empathy, would have to effectively take a second to think about saying, no, that would be terrible, as opposed to humans who would immediately
automatically recoil.
Yeah. So Deckard goes up to Seattle to the Rosen Corporation to test out the Voight-Kampff on a sample of Nexus 6 brains, with also some humans tossed in just to, sort of make it more of a clinical trial type scenario. Turns out that the woman who meets him and is his primary contact with the Rosen Corporation, Rachel Rosen, is in fact, he registers her as an android. There are initially some excuses made, like, oh, she grew up in this non-empathic environment, but it's revealed that, she's actually an android and doesn't know it.
Yeah, but it's clear they were trying to set him up
Yeah.
to discredit the Voight-Kampff test, because that is harmful to the Rosen Corporation's business.
Yes. And it's got some, there's some fun stuff that reappears in the movie, like, is this testing if I'm a replicant or a lesbian, Mr. Deckard?
Yeah, that was pulled right out of the book.
Yeah.
Actually, the whole testing of Rachel was pretty word for word.
Yeah, pretty word for word. And they try to bribe Deckard with an owl that he saw on the way in, but then it's determined it's an artificial owl.
All owls are dead.
Yeah, every owl is dead. Most birds are dead.
Yeah.
Nearly every animal is dead. I think we covered that, but let's just lay it out again.
Yeah, they're like livestock survive the best.
Yeah.
It sounds like, and like rodents and like house pets and stuff most wild animals are completely gone.
Yeah. So it turns out that it's going to be real tough to determine, because there's some level of subjectivity to the tests. Even though, like, it's implied there's some level of subjectivity to the tests that he's giving, So it's going to be difficult to determine, like, these will be tougher than previous models, I guess. So then we go back to Isidore, and it turns out that Isidore has a new person in the apartment building. Her name is Pris. Actually, her name is initially Rachel Rosen.
Yeah.
And
that was weird.
Yeah. She starts out as being very scared and bewildered when Isidore comes up to her apartment because he heard some noise. And then once she figures out that he is a special and a chicken head, gets really fucking cruel and cold.
Yeah.
And it's...
Now, Isidore, I was imagining exactly as his movie counterpart.
Well, the thing with Isidore in the movie is that he doesn't exist in the movie.
Well, yeah, but he has a counterpart,
kind of an analog. Yeah. He just wants to be friends with the new lady.
Anyone really?
Nice
Isidore is desperately lonely.
He is.
Like his loneliness manifests as like almost a physical thing crushing him. Mm-hmm. Like a force outside of his apartment that every time he leaves, he has to steel himself to go out into it. Yeah.
And his only friend is Buster Friendly, who is everybody's friend, who's the major TV host, who hosts a TV show 23 hours a day and a separate radio show 23 hours a day.
And it does at one point register to Isidore that doesn't seem possible, but whatever.
Yeah. So we basically, over the course of the next two chapters, one, there's a dead cat, which is no good.
Real quick, going back to Isidore, though, he is a very interesting character because he's got a really good vocabulary for someone who's you're told is a chicken head, mentally handicapped. It really implies that he was very smart once, I feel like.
You're not wrong. He's not implied to be somebody who was always this way, but there's also no remnants. There's also very few remnants of him before he was this way.
Right.
So it's hard to, I don't know, it's kind of hard to say. Like in the book, what is his goddamn name? William. They're my friends. I made them.
Yeah. You mean the actor's name?
The character's name, even, I would take.
Isn't it J? It's like an initial or something.
Sebastian.
Okay, it's not an initial.
JF Sebastian.
Okay, yeah, it was good. Sebastian, just like the horse.
Yeah,
there's a horse in this book too. It all comes full circle.
It does. You get some idea that like, oh, he is/was very smart, at least in certain things. You know, kind of like a savant at the least.
Yeah.
Isidore, you get no hints of that other than he talks a little smarter than you would expect somebody who is being treated as clearly very mentally disabled.
Yeah, you also get his inner monologue, which is, I feel it's presented, he is more perceptive than a lot of the people around him, like especially when he's with his coworkers or even when he's with Deckard and the androids. He's more perceptive than everybody assumes because he's a chicken head. They assume he doesn't have any value as a human.
But he does miss some things.
Yeah. He is a chicken head at the end of the day.
And in chapter 7, he goes to pick up a cat for veterinary care. And it turns out that the cat is real. And
his company does not deal in real animals.
Yeah, it probably wasn't going to survive anyway, but it seems like maybe he accidentally...
Definitely isn't going to survive when he tries to stick his USB-C charger in the cat's ass.
Yeah.
That's basically what he tried to do.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. But the guys of the company's like, I guess it was bound to happen at some point. But he does do a really good job of sort of covering it with the cat's owner about what happened.
Yeah, his boss is a real asshole.
Yeah, it really is. Although he says a couple of times that his boss is a very nice man who treats him almost like he isn't a chicken head.
True.
We don't get to see that. But
No, we don't. He's got that other coworker that was working for him stood up for him and stuff. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're learning. We've got these parallel tracks of Isidore and Deckard. And Isidore at this point is just stumbling along. From here to the end of the book, basically, Isidore gets drawn into the sort of taking care of and supporting the androids, in part because he feels empathy for the androids. And we find out the androids absolutely cannot feel empathy for him.
No, this book is not a question of they're presented as if they don't feel empathy, but really they do. No, they don't.
No, they don't. It might have been a better book if they did, but who knows? So the rest of this, we'll get back to Isidore in several chapters, but now we need to get into the meat of Deckard. So Deckard's hunting these androids after he's already almost failed to detect Rachel. So a Soviet cop is going to come and help him because the Soviet cops want to find out about the Nexus 6 androids. And then it turns out that the Soviet cop is in fact an android pretending to be a Soviet cop. He's the android who shot Dave Holden. And we go through a sequence a lot like, and this is a dumb thing to say, a lot like the movie, where he's just kind of hunting down androids and trying to kill them. I do like that part of the book, by the way. Yeah, I really do. It's going to be like it.
It's very similar to the movie. Now, I don't know. Maybe some of our listeners haven't seen the movie. Maybe they're waiting to watch it when we cover it. You're going to be waiting a while. No.
Yeah. I don't recommend that. Go ahead and see the movie, people.
Yeah, go watch it. It's good.
The main thing that I like and think is important in this section of the book is Deckard goes to capture Luba Luft, who is one of the androids who's posing as an opera singer. In the movie, she's a snake dancer.
This is like the point where Deckard becomes a character with more than just a deep need for a farm animal.
Yeah.
The whole point up to this, I'm just like, he's just kind of a loser who's really jealous of all his neighbors' animals.
Yeah. It's in chapter 9 once he starts trying to interrogate Luba. I wrote down, at this point, drugs are kicking hard at Dick's brain. He's talking about philosophies of decay and things like that.
Yeah, I remember.
It really goes off on a couple of tangents, half a page or a page long. And you're like, wow, this is very different from nearly everything I've read so far. He got off on a real run at this point and didn't think to go back and change stuff. So, excuse me. So he interrogates Luba Luft in her dressing room, and fucks up. And Luba calls the cops on him, holding him at gunpoint. And the cop who arrives has never heard of Deckard or his Captain Bryant or any of the people he knows at the police, and takes him to a police station. Except in Deckard's mind, they're not going to the police station. They're going to a totally different building. This cop says, no, that place, Lombard Street, where you say you work at, has been abandoned for years.
This whole section was a mindfuck.
It really was. It's my favorite part of the book.
Okay.
So he gets taken to the police station. He gets taken to and everybody is acting like we need to figure out what the fuck is going on here.
At this point, everybody is basically accusing Deckard of being an android.
Yeah,
and as a reader, you're like,
because there's no way to disprove it, because they keep talking about implanted memories and things like that.
They let him call his wife and nobody answers, or somebody else answers, or
somebody who isn't his wife answers.
He tries to call the station and he gets his boss, but then when the cop comes over to talk, they can't get his boss on the phone.
Yeah, there's nobody there. So then it turns out that the police captain that the initial cop took him to is on
tapping the table.
Oh, sorry. I think that was actually me tapping the mic line.
Oh, okay.
So the police captain is on Deckard's list. He's on one of the flimsies. And
That's
I
right.
can't remember which android name this one has.
Yeah, it begins with M, I think, but yeah.
Yeah.
Says, if you had retired Luba Luft, you'd have been coming after me next. Dun, dun!
And then calls in another bounty hunter. Their station bounty hunter, a guy named Phil Resch.
Real cool guy.
And Resch says, no, I don't know this dude. I've never seen him before. But I kind of like the idea of these tests. This is like the way he's testing people, because this police station doesn't test people like this. They use this arc reflex response, whatever. And
he's like, I kind of thought we should be testing the brass in this station for a long time, because it'd be a great place for an Andy to hide.
Yeah, it really would. So he goes to get the testing equipment. And then the captain, once Resch leaves, levels with Deckard and is like, so, yeah, obviously I'm an android. A bunch of the people in here are, but a bunch of people don't know. Resch isn't. And
actually, he didn't say that. He was trying to say Resch was. Yeah. Because you kind of go along thinking that Resch is until he actually gets a voice contest.
Yeah, that's my next line. Yeah. So once Resch figures it out,
I think that's important to say, because Resch kind of has his own little existential crisis.
Yeah. The captain basically says, Resch came in a different group. He was implanted with different memories than everybody else, so he has no idea. And if he finds out that he's an android, you have no fucking idea what he'll do. Will he kill himself? Will he kill me and you? Go on a fucking killing spree just out in the street?
He's a loose cannon. We got to deal with this guy first before you deal with me.
Yeah, this is going to be a real problem. And then Resch comes back to the room, and Garland says something that tips him off, and he kills Garland. Garland is the police chief, sorry.
Nice pull.
Bisects Garland's head with his laser. There's a lot of weird tech stuff going on with this book that's just entirely nobody cares about.
Yeah.
There's never at any point where somebody says a laser gun. It's all laser tubes.
And it seems to work more like a lightsaber or like a monofilament whip or something, but whatever. It's cool. Yeah. It worked for me.
So then Resch and Deckard kind of bond, and Deckard says, this building's got to be infested with androids, and we got to get back to the opera house and catch Luft before she runs.
Right. But the whole time Resch is like, am I an android?
Yeah.
Would an android... I have a... What does he say? I have a cat. I love my cat. Would an android love a cat?
Yeah.
And I want you to have my cat if you have to kill me because I'm an android.
Yeah, it's actually, like I said, this is my favorite part of the book.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and
I don't think it's communicate... Like, maybe it's the writing problem you're talking about. But in the beginning, when you're starting to think that Deckard is an android, I don't really get the purpose of that. If it's to fuck with the reader or...
I think it's to fuck with the reader, and the thing...
And it's muddied by the fucking endless debate over all these years over whether Deckard's an android in the movie.
Exactly.
Maybe that's what's fucking me up about it.
Yeah, this part, this, 2 chapters, 3 chapters of the book is weirdly the central point of the movie as it exists in our, post-2000 world.
True.
Like,
yeah, you're right.
this 3 chapters, which sort of don't amount to anything in the book. I mean, because, you know,
It
it's
develops
like,
Deckard a little bit, and like he ends up hating Resh, but
yeah, but like, you spend the first, you know, 1.5 of these 3 chapters going, is Deckard an android? Wait, what are we serious here? Because that would be an interesting twist, huh? Fun way to do that. And that is how, like, that is the second thing that people think about when people think Blade Runner.
right.
Like, the first thing is neon rain, you know, the aesthetics of it.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is Deckard an android? Huh. And
Which I say no, but that's just my personal headcanon.
Yeah, you're allowed. And I don't care at all.
Yeah, that's true too. I only pick a side just to pick one, but you're right.
I'm a huge fan of the movie. I don't give a shit. don't give a fuck at all. Like, doesn't matter to me. Doesn't change anything. So we go to the opera house. And then we end up getting shunted off to a museum where Luba is looking at art on her lunch break. And I think this was intended to be important and arty. She's looking at an Edvard Munch exhibition.
Right, yeah.
Edvard Munch of The Scream, which
it's interesting because she seems to love it, whereas what's his name, the other bounty hunter,
Resh,
fucking hates it.
Yeah, he's so she spends a bunch of time as they're escorting her out, needling Resh, saying that he's an android, basically, and he ends up killing her and is pretty convinced that he's an android.
It's interesting that during this time, Deckard buys an art book for Luba.
Yeah, for her.
Because she asked for it. And Resh is like, why would you do that? And then once they kill her, Deckard ends up burning it, I think.
Yeah.
And Resh is like, why would you do that? There's no value in that. You're just wasting things, which is something the androids would say, because it's...
Yeah,
and
empathy.
Everybody's thinking that Resh is an android at this point.
Yeah. So then Deckard administers the Void Conf to Resh, and he passes. And then
he's not an android. He's just an asshole.
Yeah, he's not an android, just an ass. And then he has Resh look at the dials and stuff while he is being asked about Luba Luft, and nearly fails the test because he is feeling empathy for the android.
Right.
Which is an interesting thing we haven't covered prior to this in the book, that apparently real humans aren't supposed to feel empathy for things that aren't people or animals?
No, they show it like humans feeling empathy for their microwave.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because, I mean...
yeah.
My wife anthropomorphizes stuff all the time. Her Jeep has an entire personality.
Sure.
That if we wrecked it, there would be sadness involved, as if we lost, an animal.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess they just skip over that type of thing in the book.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was a weird thing because that is kind of one of the things we're really good at with human anthropomorphizing things. Right. I mean, that's one of our big things throughout all of history and prehistory.
It's either an oversight or just like it's just supposed to be part of the times, maybe, where humans become more precious because there's fewer of them, and androids, you have to disconnect them because they're slaves, and you can't think slaves are human because there's a natural problem with that in most humans' brains. Yeah, I don't know. It's
definitely a fucking weird.
Yeah,
definitely a weird fucking thing. And we basically end the chapter with Deckard going, "This sucks. I don't want to be a hunter anymore."
Yeah, I don't like killing these things.
And there's a fun little bit about how He's talking to Resh, and Resh says, "Oh yeah, you felt attracted to Luft, and the thing to do about that, you've never felt that before. That's weird. The thing to do about that is to fuck him and then kill him."
Yeah, that'll solve that problem, which
Yeah.
does not help Deckard's state of mind.
No,
And the only thing that will help Deckard's state of mind
is buying a celebratory
a
goat.
fucking goat.
Yes, he buys a celebratory goat. Makes up with his wife a little bit with this, exciting goat purchase.
Yeah, the goat, new life in their marriage because they have a goat now.
Yeah. And then he gets a phone call from his boss, Harry Bryant, who has the location of the baddies, who are the remaining androids along with Pris. No idea how this occurred, how Bryant got this information.
No, not important.
And the baddies have moved into John Isidore's apartment building with Pris because they got scared out because he had killed Garland and Luft. So Bryant says this needs to be finished tonight. If these guys have if you go to sleep or waste any time, they're going to scatter and we'll never find them again.
This is when you realize this is still
the same
only
fucking
been
day.
one day. Yeah. This is like the time you've spent reading the book. If you'd actually sat down and read it, would be almost real time for how much time has passed.
Yeah. So he's like, shit, I gotta go. Take care of the goat. Bye. Is about to take off, and then he gives Rachel a call because she had volunteered to come help him identify the Nexus 6s. He calls to get her to come down to San Francisco from, I don't remember, Seattle, and fuck in a hotel. And
Deckard is kind of a piece of shit.
Yeah, kind of a piece of shit. So he studies the remaining androids, which is Roy Batty, his wife Imogene Batty, I think, something like that.
No, that's not how the audiobook pronounced it, but it was similar.
Ermgren, or I don't remember. It's something.
Yeah.
And then Pris. These are the remaining androids.
And it's important to note that Pris is the exact same model as Rachel, who Deckard just banged and might have more feelings for, but Pris is going to look exactly like her.
Yeah, which really makes you go, oh, so that's why that's why Resh said the thing about fuck him, then kill him.
Yeah. Well, I think which Deckard points out later when he has to kill Pris.
Yeah.
It's like, I did what Resh suggested. I suck.
It also introduces a little device that Rachel gives him, which will paralyze androids for a few seconds. So we get a little bit of kind of the internal... We get Rachel explaining some things that are kind of like her internal life. She's 2 years old. She has 2 years left.
Yeah, also kind of gross to point out that she's like modeled off an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
She's supposed to be young looking, which is kind of gross.
Yeah. And this is the first mention of lifespan in the entire book, which is a major part of the movie. Yeah. And it turns out that somehow Rachel knows the other Andys. She has information about them and acts as though they're she knows them and is friends with them somehow. Doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Doesn't make sense because they were off planet.
And has also fucked 9 bounty hunters.
Yeah,
including Resh.
Yeah, she fucked Resh.
Yeah, her whole job is stand around the Rosen Corporation offices, wait for a bounty hunter to show up to look at the new models, and then
seduce them,
and
give them empathy towards androids so that they stop killing them. Didn't work with Resh, apparently. He still likes killing them even after he's fucked up.
He's into it.
A piece of shit, but an honest piece of shit.
He really is. And I mean, he's less of a piece of shit because you get the character is less of a piece of shit than he actually is, because you get this crisis point of, well, shit, am I an android? Has this all been
Right.
so he's going, like, the entirety of his appearance in the book almost is him being like, so you'll kill me if I'm an android, right? Like, please.
Yeah, he is probably maybe the most interesting character.
Yeah,
At least his arc is, even though he's such a small part of it.
yeah. So we get a little more of Rachel's thoughts. Deckard's about to kill her and decides he can't. And just as he's about to leave, we find out that Buster Friendly has a really important announcement coming up.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're back. We're getting to the climax of the book. We're back over to Isidore. And there have been some more chapters, but basically, all the androids are in one apartment with Isidore. Roy has set up a trap for the Bladerunner to kick off when he tries to come in. And Isidore finds a live spider.
I before we get to the spider, I think it was interesting the way Dick set up, like, as he's meeting these three androids, they are very different personalities.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Pris is just kind of a cunt
Yeah,
to Isidore, really, but Imogen, or whatever her name is, I can't remember it offhand, is quite nice to Isidore.
Yeah, much more polite.
She seems to be the smartest of the three. She's only nice because she sees his usefulness. She tells Pris to stop calling him a chicken head, not because she feels bad about his feelings being hurt, but because she wants him to help them. And she knows if his feelings get hurt, he's not going to help them. But I'm sure she comes off as like motherly kind of to Isidore. And Batty, who in the movie is this badass, is just kind of an idiotic thug.
Yeah,
in the book.
He's described as being like really huge, like kind of, I don't know, not necessarily fat, but just like a giant, like monstrously large person.
Yeah. And his solution to everything is just fight it or kill it. He just like doesn't see the use of Isidore and just wants him out.
Oh, and it is established at some point in the book that he was apparently a pharmacist on Mars, not a war android.
Yeah, no,
as he was in the book.
Fires off the 10 Hauser gate or whatever the shit.
Shoulders of Orion.
Shoulders of Orion.
Yeah.
C-beams glittering in the darkness. Yeah.
So they're
sorry. All those moments will be lost to time. All those pill bottles filled in CVS.
Yes, he was the striking CVS worker of Mars.
Roy, we need you to restock the condoms. Like tears in rain.
We had another run on Magnums.
Anyway.
Okay. So Isidore finds a spider. And is very excited because finding any living creature that isn't a person is very exciting because they hardly exist. And then Pris cuts its legs off because it's got 8. Let's see how it gets around with 4. It can't possibly need 8.
Yeah, but this is a good scene because she's doing this while Buster Friendly is giving his big announcement.
Yes.
Which is basically that mercerism is a lie. All you dummy humans falling for this religion. Look, we're proving that it's false. And that all ends up, nobody really cares.
They have some cool evidence, like an interview with an actor who 30 years ago taped this footage of climbing a hill and, look at these brush marks on the moon and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which one thing that I thought was quite that this made me think of was, this is actually like 1968. This is before the conspiracy theories about Stanley Kubrick,
true.
Doing the fake moon landing.
That's true.
Like, this is it.
I liked this scene though, because as Buster Friendly is giving this announcement, all the androids knew it was coming. Like Rachel had alluded to it earlier. Roy was like, "We got to watch this," and he's like, "Look, it's all crumbling around." And Pris is cutting off the legs of the spider, and like Isidore, who's your POV character, is really only concerned about the spider.
Yeah.
He's a mercerist. Like he talks about mercerism all the time. He doesn't even care about that. He just feels awful for this living creature being mutilated in front of him.
Yeah, they especially Pris mutilates the spider, and Isidore ends up killing it to end its misery, and then he has a mental break? ? Psychic powers?
Who knows?
Where
the drugs were peaking.
Yeah, it seems like entropy is going nuts, and the spider ends up getting resurrected, and he travels into Mercerism.
Mercer resurrects the spider?
Yeah, and has a conversation with Mercer. And Mercer says that, but Buster Friendly's news item is accurate, but it's not going to change anything because empathy is the point.
I think he wandered over to the empathy box at some point.
Yeah. He does get on the empathy box, but this is after all the androids are reacting to, I don't know, everything around them turning into a Nine Inch Nails video and like decaying and rising back to life.
That's true. Yeah, I forgot about that.
So then the alarm goes off that Roy had set, and Deckard's there. Isidore takes the spider outside, and
it's alive now.
Yeah, it's now alive. He meets Deckard, sets the spider free in the yard, I guess.
Deckard's like, you get $500 for that thing.
Yeah, because Deckard, one of the running themes is that Deckard and everybody has these catalogs, these Sydney's catalogs of what animals are worth.
Right.
And Isidore's like, who cares? But he does let Deckard know that the androids are inside and that he knows they're androids and that he is still sympathetic to them. And then stays outside.
Yeah.
And Deckard goes in alone. Then the drugs kick again. Mercer appears on the stairs
and warns Deckard.
Yeah, warns Deckard that the hardest one to kill is going to be behind him.
Like, no, not in a little bit. Right now, idiot. Turn around.
Yeah, turn around, dumb shit. And it turns out it's Rachel, but it's not Rachel. It's Pris, apparently dressed as Rachel. I don't know. There's no clothing mentioned in this entire fucking book.
I think at some point he notices that it's not Rachel. Like he thinks it's Rachel at first, even though he goes in knowing that Pris is going to look exactly like Rachel.
Yeah.
He still starts to talk to her as if she's Rachel, and then sees some subtle difference in her clothing or hair or something.
Yeah. So he blows her away. It's kind of nothing.
Yeah. It's like, oh, that was the hard one. That wasn't that bad.
Yeah. He gets into the apartment. And then basically it's really interesting. He's just been attempted murdered by Pris. He knocks on the apartment door. The apartment door opens.
Well, he imitates Isidore.
Yeah. Poorly, probably. Hey, I need to be let back in.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though. That's the point. The androids paid so little attention to Isidore. His stating facts that Isidore knew was enough for them. They didn't even really register if his voice was the same or not, because they don't give a shit about Isidore.
Oh, that's actually okay. Yeah, that's a better way to read it. So he gets into the apartment, and everything's going paper pushery, where he's like, well, I need to test you about when he knows they're both androids. They know he's a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
And then Roy shoots at him, and Deckard kills both of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of bleh.
Yeah.
So that's the climax ?
Pretty
of
much.
the book. Deckard goes home. There's still some book left.
Yeah.
Deckard goes home, and it turns out that they no longer have a goat. Iran, his wife, tells him that a woman showed up and threw the goat off the roof.
Yeah. We didn't really get into how important this goat was. Like,
I mean,
he tells everybody, he's like, I got a goat now.
I got a goat.
It's like a new father.
It's a Nubian.
I'm a goat owner.
Yeah. And he's like, okay, bye, and gets back into the car and flies off into a wasteland.
Into the fucking desert, steals a van, gets an 8-track tape of the Doors.
Has to be an 8-track. So then he flies off into the desert and starts climbing a hill and turns into Mercer? ?
Basically. Gets pelted with rocks.
Yeah. Then gets back in the car, calls his office, seems to be having a psychotic break, mentions that he can never die.
I'm the best bounty hunter that's ever lived.
Yeah.
He does seem to be really bipolar, flashing between extreme depression and then pride. It's
really weird.
It's weird.
Yeah. So he starts to call his wife because she has been calling the office, weirdly enough, having just been walked away from.
Yeah.
And he starts to call his wife and then freezes because he sees a toad in the road.
Toads are extinct. How could it be?
Toads are entirely extinct. And it's the most sacred or the second most sacred animal to Mercer.
Mm-hmm.
So he retrieves this toad in a box. It's very exciting.
He's very happy again.
Yeah, he heads back to the city. And then he shows around the toad and is like, look, I found the coolest thing ever. Boy, I'm tired. I really got to take a nap. And she's like, oh, that's a nice toad. And then like a flap opens on the toad and its USB charging port is exposed.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, that's too bad. And Rick is like, well, this was a really bad day, but I gotta go to sleep. So he lays down in bed, and the book ends with Iran ordering supplies to take care of the electric toad because, quote, her husband is very devoted to it. And that's it.
Yeah. Nothing good happens to anybody.
No, not really.
I guess Isidore gets to see a spider for a little bit.
Yeah, that's nice, I guess. So, yeah. That's where we are.
It's, I don't know, man. I liked it. I mean, I liked it in a way that you like bleak, sad things sometimes. I don't know. Maybe it was a weird week. Maybe I just read it at a weird time where I connected with a lot of the things being expressed.
I liked it too. Like I said, I liked it much more this time than I did, 25 years ago or whenever the last time I read it.
Yeah.
I think that's hugely helped. And I don't want to steer into this much, if at all. I think it's hugely helped by the fact that it is 50 years old almost,
mm-hmm.
and more than 50 years old. And because of that is 212 pages. Because I feel like if somebody were to sit down and write this book nowadays,
mm-hmm.
this would be a fucking trilogy of 500-page books.
Right.
And in part that's bad.
Yeah.
Because you can really you can knock out a really good book in 200, 300 pages.
And more people should try. Same with movies. More people should try.
Fuck, man, movies are so long. I'm not going to argue with Napoleon being fucking 3 hours long because it's a giant historical epic.
Sure.
But holy shit.
Does Ms. Marvel need to be 3 hours long?
No, it absolutely does not.
Out of Darkness was a tight 90.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah. So that really helps. I mean, if this book was 400 pages, it would probably be better written, but fuck, it'd be a drag.
Yeah, I agree. I am, as you went through it and explained some of the things that are, kind of left undone and they're kind of hard to follow. I get more what you're saying about the writing style. I didn't necessarily notice it when I was reading, but I don't know. I feel like I read books. I don't know. The way I read books might be different.
And I think, it's
one thing, I'm not actually reading them.
That's true. And that's why, that's one of the reasons I'm more than happy to have other people come on our show and, argue with me about this or whatever, because I've got my perspective isn't the same as everybody else's. I know there are plenty of people out there who really love the older golden age of science fiction shit.
Uh-huh.
And there's just a level of disconnect with me. Like, some of those I like, but I find it really hard to love any of them because while some of the ideas are really good, I like a little more thought and energy put into the language of,
Sure.
the existence of the book.
One thing I did like about this is it did not feel like a book from the 60s to me.
No.
It felt like it took place in the future. Now, the future had some anachronisms that you can attribute to being from the 60s, but it didn't feel dated. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This book, in both the writing quality and just the content, it didn't have, because it was kind of on the edge of going out of that kind of golden age of science fiction, it didn't have the Buck Rogers aspect
right
that most of the earlier stuff has. And also the fact that it's pretty grimly post-apocalyptic helped.
Yeah.
Maybe
was TV as prevalent in 1968 as it was in the 80s? I honestly don't know.
Not as, but I mean, it was a big deal.
Because this was, how a lot of people in the 80s thought that TV was going to kill us all because everybody was glued to their sets all the time.
57 channels and nothing on.
TV
yeah, Springsteen
casualty.
wrote about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of good songs about it.
TV Party Tonight.
Yeah. I don't know if that existed in the 60s, but it seemed one of the things he was pointing to, Buster Friendly.
Yeah.
One channel, and Buster Friendly's on. But I don't know. There's a lot of themes that felt modern and felt relevant.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a good book. I like it much less than I like the movie, but that's probably because I like the movie to a relatively unnatural
The movie
degree.
is like a top 10 media situation.
Yeah,
it's hard to beat.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard. That's why I didn't want to spend this whole thing comparing it to the movie because, the movie's fucking, it's on another level.
Yeah.
Let's rate this motherfucker. What do you say?
Yes, let's do that.
Story. The story of a bounty hunter man who didn't want to kill robots anymore. I think it's pretty good in a world that existed before Blade Runner. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, if it didn't, I would say this is I'm
gonna go 8.5 personally.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot this was a 10.
Yep.
I was doing a 1 to 5. Sorry, my fault. I'm gonna go 8.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's a pretty strong story, not necessarily conveyed in the clearest way, but all the elements are there. Influence, hard to understate it.
This is influence-wise. I kind of have to give this a 10, if only because the general outline was used for the movie Blade Runner, which also has a 10.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I can't argue with 10. And I think there's influences outside of Blade Runner.
Oh, yeah. There absolutely are. Dick is one of William Gibson's, authors that he, I don't know, I guess one of the authors that he was a big fan of, even though it's less so Dick than, say, Ballard, but whatever. This is an important book in terms of science fiction for the past 50 years.
Agreed. Prescience. I don't know. I
Let
think
me check my codpiece.
we didn't actually explain the cod piece, but just read it.
Yeah,
Deckard's wife fucking hates it.
it's sexy. Yeah.
The feeling of isolation, like it's weird because we are in a heavy populated time in human experience, but isolation is still so strong. I feel.
Yeah, I think it backs into it oddly.
Yeah.
Like it's not intentionally or that's huh.
And it's so easy
your
to just
point
be
about
alone
the
all the
TV
time.
Yeah. I think your point about the TV is that's actually honestly I might go with a
And honestly, World War
Terminus.
Ultimate or whatever, not off the table.
I honestly want to go like 7.5 or
I think
fucking 8.
Yeah, I think 8 is what I want to say.
Okay, let's do 8 then. I mean, because it's way more prescient than I remembered even when I was reading the first couple of chapters.
Yeah, we really need. I think when we get to episode 50, we should do a Patreon recap of all our ratings for everything we've done. Because looking back,
that's a good idea.
High prescience ratings. Wonder what we were thinking.
Yeah.
Burst City got a 9.5.
Well, I mean, that's the best movie ever, and it's exactly how we live our lives today.
Okay, I guess fair.
By the way, I need to get my my torpedo helmet refurbished.
Yes, and torpedo. I need my dynamite crown made.
Yes.
All right, style. It didn't really like Blade Runner's obviously oozing with style, but
but this has none of it.
Right, everything it has, I feel like I've just migrated over from Blade Runner. So I don't think it's fair to give this one a high style rating.
No, I would in fact give this a pretty low style rating, just because in part that's where I'm going to slot some of my dissatisfaction with the writing style.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
So I'm going to give this like a fucking 3.
Yeah,
maybe.
I was thinking 3.5, maybe 4. I'll say 3.5. I mean, I don't know. Where would I even come up with those points? It's got God. I feel like it's all just stolen from Blade, because in my mind I can picture the Blade Runner world. I've watched it a million times. So, but is that actually what's being portrayed in the book? That might not be a fair thing to say. Lastly, 1 to 5 scale. How much did you like it on a scale of 1 to 5 hand raisers? I am going to go 4. I was
going to go 3.5. Though
there's room for improvement, but I liked it.
Honestly, I'll go ahead and go 4. I think that seems fair.
I should need to start doing these in pencil. Real quick, how cyberpunk do you think this is before we fuck off out of here?
Not very cyberpunk.
I mean, given that it existed before cyberpunk was a phrase that was coined, I think it definitely has the elements.
Has some elements. I mean, we've got the artificial intelligence.
Got the dystopia.
We got some dystopia.
I mean, I feel like if you've got artificial intelligence and dystopia, you're in to an extent.
I don't disagree.
Now the movie had like
it doesn't have any punk at all. I mean,
no, we're following a cop, and
we're
the cops
following
are pretty good.
Not just a cop, a murder cop.
A murder cop.
Yeah. Like he only does murder.
Yeah, his job is murder.
Just like his job would be beach if he was a Ken.
Yeah. Isidore, there's a little crust punk aspect there, probably.
Okay, sure. Yeah, okay. All right, fair.
Definitely high tech, low life with the. So it's higher than some, but no, it's not like
it's not very
traditional.
Yeah. Okay, so something that I thought about after the fact that I had actually considered and meant to talk about during the podcast recording, but didn't remember until substantially later, was that one of my regular recurring mental themes with trying to define cyberpunk is it is often concerned with the changing ways in which we use technology to mediate our lives within society, and how society uses technology to mediate and control our lives. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is a really good example of this, and in fact, it's maybe the most cyberpunk thing about it, even though it takes a form very different from a lot of them, in that a huge focus of the book, and we talk about this quite a bit on the episode, is Mercerism and empathy boxes. Like Deckard, and it seems most people, only feel connected to society and other people when they are gripping the handles of the empathy boxes and using those to commune with the greater society. So I think that's an important aspect that I unfortunately failed to mention while we were recording. That's another cyberpunk thing about it. Anyway, bye, sorry.
All right. Well, that's done.
Hey, what are we doing next?
Oh, boy. Are we going to do next what we've been discussing doing next? I hope I can watch it all.
Yeah, I think it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, it's like maybe 3 hours?
Yeah, but I have a lot of masturbation to do. Takes up a lot of time.
Don't we all?
It's a burden.
It is. And a privilege.
And I always do it when I'm tapped into my empathy box so people can share that feeling throughout the world.
Oh, is that what we're calling it now?
Yes.
I was just calling it the Dune 2 the popcorn
popcorn. Oh my God, dude. My wife bought a dog paw washer off Amazon.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. Yeah, it's the same thing.
I call it Hazel's little foot fleshlight.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, we're going to be speaking of weird sex stuff, we're going to be covering Aeon Flux, the animated series.
Yes.
Not the movie.
Not the movie. We will get to the movie at some point.
Mm-hmm. If you're wanting to watch this, it's not easy. Some of it is streaming on Amazon, like the bulk of it, but the earliest stuff, the Liquid Television stuff, you have to purchase it on Amazon, which is kind of expensive. I'm just buying the DVD on and just having it shipped to me because it's $7 for the DVD.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way I found to watch it.
Yeah, it just seems like the least hassle. You can undoubtedly find it on the 7 Seas.
Yeah, and maybe some creative searching on the internet, maybe Vimeo or some bootleg site. The difficulty is finding out how to watch it in order. We will get to that on our episode and break it down.
On the upside, I don't think the order matters too much. No. At least
it's going to be a lot of esoteric, philosophical, not even that. Yeah. I don't know. It's nonsense. It's going to be a nonsense show.
Yeah, it really will, but it's going to be hot.
It's going to be sexy. So, yeah, you probably like one of the episodes of ours that it won't really hurt you to not watch it beforehand. You can probably still follow along pretty well.
Yeah, or just like check out some of it. I mean, because there's not, from what I recall having seen it before, there is not much, if any, continuity to it at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you do find it, great, because I think there's maybe a total of 3 hours of content. Like the first 2 seasons are 40 minutes tops.
Yeah.
And then the third season is
10 episodes of 20 minutes an episode. So
yeah. So, I mean, even if you watch just a few of them, that's kind of a good portion of what.
Yeah, or just Google clips on YouTube.
Yeah.
So YouTube clips on Google, whatever.
Yeah.
Get the vibes, man. It's gonna have a high style rating. I can guarantee that right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is gonna fucking crush to Android Dream of Electric Sheep style.
Yeah, definitely. So excited for that. It'll be fun. And then that's it.
That's it.
Please find us on the social medias. Twitter at Johnny60seconds. We're on YouTube. If you're listening to this on YouTube, hi, leave a comment, like and subscribe. That's nice of you.
Hello.
I just put out a fun short last week.
Yes, it was great. Had all three of us doing funnies.
Yeah, and the guest was the funniest of all.
Yeah.
And Blue Sky, search for us on there. Also Patreon, patreon.com/hightechlowlife. We owe you all an episode, and we will be doing one very soon.
Yes, we will. We will discuss what exactly the fuck that's going to be.
Yeah, we've got
immediately
several ideas. We just have to pick one.
Yeah, we do.
Until next week, is this testing whether I'm an android or a lesbian, Mr. Deck?
God damn it, you stole mine.
It's like the husband of the one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
This has been the High Tech Low Life podcast. Find us on Twitter at Johnny60seconds, email us at hightechlowlifepodcast@gmail.com, and find us on Patreon at patreon.com/hightechlowlife. Theme music by Nihilor at nihilor.com. Thank you for listening.
Keep it moving. Come on, what are you waiting on? Let's go.
They're trashing our rights, man! They're trashing the fluid data! They're trashing! Hide the planet!
Shut up and get in the car.
We never even mentioned Kipple.
No, we didn't. I almost did a couple of times and then thought, I'll get back to it, and then didn't.
It's an interesting concept that I kind of liked as a concept, just the idea of just trash.
The physical manifestation of entropy.
Yeah. One day, this is just going to be a rock with a shit ton of kipple hurtling through space. Good times.
Okay, well, that was the episode.